Yesterday, the House did not pass this continuing resolution. Speaker Johnson says that he's got a plan B suddenly. I don't know what it is. But the bottom line is we find ourselves in this position at the end of every September. We got to figure out how to fund the government. And they're trying to negotiate. Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? To House Republicans put the SAVE Act, which is about ensuring integrity in our elections, as part of it, even though Democrats won't support it. The idea is, hey, we'll get them on the record. Here's an interesting thing that I read, though, that I just want to sort of put this in context because it was interesting. Bill Clinton was president the last time the four corners of congressional leadership, meaning the House and Senate Republican leader and then the House and Senate Democratic leader, managed to do one of their most important jobs on time: fully fund every appropriations bill by the October 1st deadline. That's in the 1990s, by the way. Congress is on track to pass 0 of the appropriations bills, and there's 12 of them, for the 6th year in a row. It's not all of them. That was 96. They haven't passed any of them for the first time in 6 years. The House has passed 5 funding bills. The Senate committees have passed their versions of every appropriations bill except Homeland Security. None has received a floor vote. So I don't know, maybe I care too much about this, but I am so distraught at how dysfunctional this has gotten and how, like, Republicans can't get their act together. And so, Sarah, I mean, do you care? Is this like, dude, no one cares? And if so, do you have a solution, or is it like just jam this stuff through?
I mean, look, not to be disrespectful, Sean, but you talk about shutting down the government, and I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm in, right? I'm just tired of the bloated bureaucracy. So
right.
I agree with you that it's disgraceful that they can't get anything done. But at the same time, I don't blame the people for standing strong and saying we keep passing these spending bills. We keep, spending more money that we don't have, and we have absolutely no plan to get spending in check. I'm not voting for 11 bills stuffed together at the same time. I want to vote on a clean bill. And so I can't blame them for that. I also think it's hilarious that, not really. I say that tongue in cheek, that the Democrats, for all they want to talk about, oh my God, everything, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Everything is a threat to democracy. They can't be bothered to pass an election integrity and security bill. So it's just a lot of dysfunction. I would expect nothing less from Congress, but it is really disgraceful that they can't seem to figure out. We elect them to they campaign on, oh, I'm going to cut spending. We're going to do this. We're going to put government in check. And then what do? Absolutely nothing.
You know, Larry, when we had the speaker race, whatever it was, a year ago,
not
the Johnson one, the McCarthy one, I was asking people over and over again, and they said, we just can't get to this stage again. And I'm like, okay, but then you do.
Yeah.
It's like the guy who goes to the doctor says, okay, you're sick. I can get you by right now, but you got to make some lifestyle choices. You got to change these things. And they go, got it, doc. And then they walk out and they go to the all you can eat buffet and like drink a gallon of vodka. And they're like, okay. And we're sick. We are, as a nation. I mean, this is what Sarah's saying. I just don't get it. And it's like we wait till every end of the year. You know what? Next year is going to be different. It's going to be different. We are going to cut spending. I just don't get it. And I'm like,
yeah. I don't know. I can't pick up on your Golden Corral references there, Sean, but I will say, I think you and I are the last ones in this town who actually do want to see every single department in our government go through the appropriations and budget process. John Boehner promised that in 2010 when he won the majority overwhelmingly, and of course, nothing came of it. What we need is leadership, and there's no leadership coming anywhere. I don't necessarily blame Speaker Johnson because he can't lead by only with his slim majority and by not having any control of the Senate and the White House. What we need is a new president. We need Donald Trump, and then he has promised to put some pretty smart people in charge of sort of reinventing and making more efficient the federal government. And that will then be the game changers. We can lead the way. And he's saying he wants to do it so he can actually claim a mandate should he win. And if he doesn't, it's just going to be more of the same.
You know, Amber, the one thing that I would say that's interesting about Sarah's point, I'm with you, like close the government down. For the most part, I do worry about the national security aspects of this, but
sure, of course,
mostly they're taken care of. Okay. That being said, here's the problem. Talk about like watching the movie. They shut the government down. I'm like, great. And then what do? They pay everyone back. They're like, okay, sorry that you did that. And I'm like, wait a second. So it's almost like you even the feds, all these bureaucrats are like, hey, I'll take it, because they get, 2 weeks, 3 weeks off. and then they get all their money back. And don't get me wrong, if you're listening to this, and I get it, I was a young staffer at one point where this happened. And, if you make or on a limited budget, it does screw with your ability to make short term. But you're getting the money back, and you get all those. I mean, there's never been in history one instance where they didn't get all their money back and no penalty. So it's actually a great little gig if you're in the federal government right now. And there are no consequences. So even shutting the government down benefits the Democrats.
Yeah, but at the same time, I would say that politically that gives some cover for Republicans for shutting down the government, because it's not like they're putting all these people out of work and they're not going to be able to pay their rent, right? That's not what's happening when the government is shut down. That's a sort of cudgel that the Democrats use against Republicans to try to make it seem like, Betty down the street is going to be starving. But I just, on a more general basis, I feel like the bar is so low. I mean, it's not even about cutting spending now at this point. It's, can we increase spending a little less? Like the assumption now is that spending's going up every single year. It is automatically going to go up, and there's seemingly nothing we can do about it. I think the expectations are just really in the gutter.
Yeah, the only time we made any inroads here was after Newt Gingrich won in '94, and he and Bill Clinton were both sort of publicly in a place where they had to reach some agreement to balance the budget. But that all started because of the will of the American people. Yep. Until the American people make a big deal out of this, there's not going to be any motivation in Washington to fix the problem.
And can I just, to Amber's point really quick, the Republicans, the Democrats they do use this opportunity to go, oh my gosh, Republicans want all these poor government workers to starve. That's so sad. Aren't they mean? But Republicans fall into that every single time. It scares them. They're worried about the optics and they're like, oh my God, no, we have to do something because they're painting us as the meanies. They fall into the trap every single time. It's just really, it's so irritating to see.
100%. I will put my old budget communications director hat back when I was on the Hill. To Amber's point, I want people to understand what Amber said. So if the budget is supposed to increase, because that's how Washington works, from say, let's say that they get $10 this year and it's supposed to increase to $15. If you only give them $13, right? So they get $3 more than they had last year. In Washington and media speak, you cut them too.
Yeah.
That's insane. But that's literally, and I used to, this is what Sarah's saying. Like, we used to go around going, this is crazy. We just gave you $3 more than you had last year, but because you wanted $5, you get to call it a $2 cut. And we would go, oh my God, we should probably get it back up to 15 because we don't want to be seen as giving it a cut. Grow up, explain this issue. And this is what blows my mind. I mean, guys, I just, at some point, Larry, you made the point. Someone's got to lead. My favorite quote ever is, in the absence of leadership, take charge. Somebody's got to, in these 220 something Republicans, say, you know what? I'll be the guy. And that's what Gingrich did back in the day, frankly. He said, you know what? I'm not just going to wait to be speaker or minority leader at that time, because Bob Michael was the minority leader. He said, I'm just going to start doing this stuff. I'm going to go down. I'm going to lead this revolution. I'm going to start talking about issues, get attention, garner support. We need a Newt Gingrich is what we need.
And his reward was a historic mandate in that midterm election that gave Republicans the gavel for the first time in 50 years. So 54. He could say, listen, I told him we had to do this. I won, so let's do it. And that even brought Bill Clinton to the point of saying the era of big government spending is over. And well, gosh, it sounds like a long time ago, because look where we are now.
All right, we've been talking about cutting. I want to, since we're all financial experts, I was shocked yesterday. I know nothing about the Fed. Admittedly, I got a D in economics in college, and even that was generous. I was surprised yesterday that the Fed cut rates by five basis points versus 2.5. And so when I woke up this morning, I thought that this would be huge. Both candidates would be talking about it. The news would be going nuts. It wasn't as big of a story, and I thought to myself, that's interesting and telling at the same point, Sara Gonzales.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. By the way, I am also not an expert in this at all, but
it's a Blaze financial expert.
Yeah, you're all shocked. But what I can tell you is, looking back at the times that they have done something like this before, None of those times have been good, right? These are all very unstable, uncertain times that they have made this type of a move this big. So, I mean, here's the thing. I think that people aren't talking about it because we all kind of already recognize where we're at in this country. Americans have been feeling this for a while. And I think that we are so busy with all of the day-to-day, all of the burdens that we have due to the Biden-Harris regime. We can't fill up our gas tank. Our money is stretching thinner and thinner. We can barely pay our bills that we're like, oh, cool, the Fed, great. I don't know. I'm just trying to not like have a Haitian migrant come into my backyard and steal my cat. Right? Like the Americans are so bothered by all of these other day-to-day issues that I think that this kind of, it goes right over their heads at this point because they're already feeling the pain.
Yeah, that's part of it. I think there's also some serious economic illiteracy in our mainstream media, and they just sort of report on the Dow, and it doesn't go much further than that. I think it is going to make an impact, though, for some people. By the way, don't worry if you don't know much about the Fed, because I assure you, after you've said that, Ron Paul was right 2000 is going to blast us with comments down below. So then they'll find everything about the Fed and what's wrong with it. I think that part of the reason why this doesn't feel like it's got a huge impact is because interest rates have gone up so high for so long that even this 0.5 percentage point is not going to make a huge difference. But I think that there is a tell here that the fact that this came through as big as it was, Sean, and unexpectedly, this also shows a bit of the DC corruption. They're doing this to help Kamala Harris. Yeah. They want to see some sort of infusion that might make a difference. The Dow Jones might have a good day today. It's up by about a percentage point right now. And they want to be able to say, see, things are better now and inflation is better. So don't worry about the economy. And it's a Band-Aid on a huge artery that is still spurting blood all over our economy.
Yes, they have to be very careful with that strategy because, yes, it's going to be slightly cheaper for people to borrow money, which makes it easier to, afford a house or whatever it is you're trying to buy. But what usually follows a rate cut is more inflation. And the Biden-Harris administration has been able to say for the past few months, well, inflation's been below 3.5%. Things are getting better. We're recovering the economy. If the Fed continues to cut rates, if they do another rate cut before the election, I think they're going to be actually in big trouble because those numbers are going to start creeping up again.
Yeah, I think the timing is interesting. To Larry's point, it was sort of like an assist, and it gives them a nice talking point. Things are moving in the right direction. Right. Things are getting better. And you go, I don't know. I kind of think it's a little late on this. All right, that reminds me. I brought this up at the beginning. Between the debate, what's happened in the last 24 hours. I mean, this has been an election cycle, no other. What issue do you guys think is not getting attention that you're either shocked by or that you wish it would? So I'll start with you, Sarah. Like, is there an issue that you're saying, I wish Trump was talking about this, or I'm surprised that this is not coming up?
Yeah, I do think that, I'll give you two things. Number one, the fact that the Biden regime has come out talking about Supreme Court reform before he leaves office. I should use reform in air quotes because we all know that, they're trying to pack the court. They've got this radical plan, and nobody was asked a question about that in the ABC News debate, right? Kamala didn't have to talk about that. Nobody's really talking about that. And I just think it's kind of been swept under the rug, similarly to Joe Biden, period, because we just don't hear about him anymore, even though he is currently supposed to be in charge of the country. So that's one of them. Another one that I would say is that I think that there's just so many other issues going on that we really have not talked a lot about the transing of the children, which I think is a huge issue in this country. We are basically sterilizing an entire generation of kids. And I feel like there are just so many other, like we were talking about earlier, day-to-day issues that those are kind of being ignored. And I do hope that they start being talked about again because they're both very, very important.
Yeah. Oh, those are two good ones. Larry, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to go a little outside the box on this, Sean, because I think issues-wise, I think the Trump campaign, they're winning. If you actually look at the polls, they're doing great on the issues that matter most to the American people. And that's why Kamala Harris doesn't want to talk about issues. So if this comes down to be an election between two personality types, the elephant in the room is authenticity. say what you will about Kamala Harris, she doesn't come across as authentic right now. She seems rehearsed. She seems scripted. She seems controlled because she is. Yeah. And what you saw this week with Donald Trump in Flint, Michigan, instead of doing his traditional rally where he does his thing at the podium with his teleprompter, sitting down with Sarah Huckabee Sanders and interacting with her, responding to questions and actually having a dialogue, he's so much better in that forum, in that format.
100%.
And I understand he's going to do another one with Kristi Noem from South Dakota. This is going to be a thing that he does more and more between now and Election Day. And I think that it makes him look authentic, just like showing up on Gutfeld yesterday. He is real. He can act spontaneously. He can go off script, and he's better that way. And I think that's going to be a difference maker.
Amber,
hold on. Larry, you don't think that Kamala talking to her brothers and sisters, you better thank a union member? You don't think that's authentic?
Wait a second. Just so you know, she had a Latin accent today.
Yeah,
she did.
Man.
I love you, mommy. I love you too, mommy.
I've never seen anyone so.
Friend.
I love you back.
That's not authentic?
It's authentically ridiculous. All right, Amber, before I get to your point, I want to get you to weigh in on this, but I actually do think, Larry, you touched on such a great thing. I watched Trump the other day at Moms for Liberty. I went with him, and he engaged in this discussion. And it was so cool because I said to my wife when we got back, I was like, he told this story about The Apprentice and how it came to be and how and I was just like, I don't know. There's something I always love.
He's a great storyteller. And he did the same thing with Gutfeld, telling a story about Tim Walz. He talked about the woman who found the would-be assassin the other day. Yeah. He's so good that
but
way.
I always like the backstory to someone. And when he was telling this story about how they went to ABC and then whatever, I was just like, it was kind of cool. Like you feel like you learn a lot about them as a person and how they explain themselves. Anyway, I couldn't agree with you more. Amber, what do you think? Give me what issues do you not see as getting the due that they probably should or could?
Well, I'll give two as well, like Sarah did. I mean, the first is there's actually a local news report following Trump's rally in Tucson that suggested 20 of the attendees had possibly been the victims of some kind of chemical attack. They left the rally with burning eyes and running noses and had to seek medical care, which is really strange. No one else has reported on this besides that local Arizona station. And then second, I found myself repeatedly frustrated with the lies coming out of the Kamala campaign about abortion and IVF. I mean, just this week, they had a campaign manager say on a press call that Trump's official platform, not even talking about his platform, Project 2025, like they like to do, they were talking about Agenda 47, quote, would ban IVF and reproductive care. And they also are touting this ProPublica story, claiming that a woman died from an abortion ban in Georgia. She actually died from complications from the abortion pill. And I know that Republicans are not good at talking about this issue. They don't really know the intricacies. But if you are going to have another campaign straight up lying about your position on these issues, straight up lying about the impact of your legislation, and this is an issue that's polling at 4, 5, 6 among voters, especially among independents, then you have to learn how to talk about it.
Amen.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.